Breako. Incidents of overturn of articulated vehicles, especially tankers loaded with petroleum products, have been frequently experienced in many parts of the country in recent times. Most times when these happen, some citizens, out of greed or ignorance, throw caution to the wind and move in to scoop the petroleum products, especially petrol. And unfortunately, these petrol tankers get exploded, in some cases leading to loss of lives and property. As worrisome as the situation was becoming, President Bola Tinubu gave the National Orientation Agency, NAR, a fresh mandate for an intensive reorientation campaign against fuel scooping. How has the agency fared in this assignment given to it? This and more will be a focus on Nigeria Today. I'm Ikaria Clinton. Thanks for joining us. With me in the studio for this conversation is Olabode Shomi. He's an energy expert and also a public affairs analyst. It's a pleasure to have you on Nigeria Today.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Olabode, of course, this topic, fuel scooping, is not. It's almost becoming a daily occurrence, really. So, how would you explain the dangers of scooping fuel?
So it's probably like the same danger of walking into fire. So I think the issue of incidents or accidents that involve petrol tankers is as old as the petroleum industry. I mean, I can remember from my earliest memories. I mean, if there's the oldest one I can remember, maybe like when I was just entering secondary school, where there was some petrol tankers for them. I'm talking about the 80s now. And through the 90s and all that. So the first thing that needs to be established is that one of the reasons why people actually die is ignorance. There is the idea, the concept that the thing is not that dangerous. And if people do not understand the concept and how petroleum products work, particularly the low ignition point when there's a high temperature, they will just see it as taking a risk. Don't forget that there is a propensity within Nigeria for among the young people to gamble. And that is seen in the Lotto, in the Premier League things that they do. Virtually every young person that you can think of, and this turns to almost 100 million plus, is involved in some kind of gambling or the other. So it is that gambling thinking that allows people to dare and venture into it. And the only people who really can reach the bottom of the pyramid and penetrate through the crevices, the nooks and the crannies is the National Orientation Agency. So what they need is some help in terms of them reaching where they should reach. They may need to have town hall meetings within ward levels. It's not even local government levels, ward levels, in terms of how the political structure is built. Because there is a lot of talk, especially when it comes to what people can perceive to gain. And people have itchy ears to only hear what will benefit them. So when you're talking to ignorant people, whether they are vulcanizers or they are mechanics or they are tailors, as long as they have not done the fundamentals of science, if somebody tells them that it takes 1 hour for the thing to blow, for them, that is the person they want to listen to. because it allows them to go and risk their life and do all those things. So, but when there's a concerted effort by government and by governance, and they move into some steps that will teach them some of the fundamentals of how science operates and why petroleum products is the way it is, and why it is foolhardily for anyone to just walk in and go and scoop. It is basically the same thing to see a fire burning in a building and think that because you can see some space, you can quickly get in and get an item and come back. That's the kind of foolishness in terms of the risk analysis of what people do. But because people want to believe what they want to believe, they will ignore those kind of warnings. But it takes people understanding the science. It takes people understanding how petroleum products work for them to understand the implications of them jumping into the fire.
Now, the second question for me would be, why would people, readily see the danger? Because it's written boldly, it's highly, inflammable. And every time, or most of the time, you see these tankers overturn, most of the time it results to explosion, and you see people burning. This is not like you were told. You see it happening, So why do people really engage in field scoping?
Like I said, it's ignorance.
Is it really ignorance? Like you see people dying?
It's ignorance. So this is how the thing goes. First of all, the people that will say the stories, they are going to say the stories of the few who were able to scoop some amount of jerry cans of fuel and sold it and used the money at beer parlors and all that. So don't forget that there's a proverb where I come from that says any amount that a thief sells a loot is profit. So if
there's no capital.
So so a guy goes in, gets about 3 or 4 jerry cans of petrol, manages to escape before the thing gets to flashpoint. That is the story people will be talking about, not about the lives that were lost. So, and like I said, given that the youth have a strong propensity to gamble, they will want to believe that one story as against the tens or hundreds of lives that were lost. Because you see, petrol, when it gets to a certain stage, it evaporates. It now starts to work like gas because it comes to the gaseous state. So when it ignites, that's why the thing moves that's why the fire moves like a wind, because it is the petrol that is in gaseous state, which started from the one that is in liquid state, transverses every area where that gaseous petrol is. So if you are around a place where there's the gas, petrol gas, it will burn the person. The person doesn't even have to go near there. That's where there's a danger, and the people are advised to keep some distance and all that. So when people want to do whatever it is that they want to do, they just ignore all warning signs. So, and even if everybody is educated, which we're praying is what the National Orientation Agency would do, those that will still ignore all the signs and do what is wrong will still do it. That's the nature of human beings. But we want those people to be in the minority, to be the exception rather than the norm. And that is the way it should be.
Okay, now some have argued that part of the reason why people do what they do, especially what has got to do with field scooping, is some will say poverty, high cost of living. But then again, would you say because things are expensive, you risk your life to make
So it's this narrative applies to so many things in life. When you see a young man who is involved in criminal activities, probably as a student, the first excuse is poverty. When you see a young lady involved in whatever it is they do as students, the first excuse is there's poverty. But the truth is that there are those who live in the villages who have even 10 times worse poverty and who don't do those things. There are children of rich parents who do those things. There are children of poor parents who don't do those things. Yes, poverty has an impact that it does in draining people's dreams and hopes. But poverty is not solely responsible for people's decisions. People do the things they want to do because they want to do it. And then they now look for a basis for justifying it. Those people who go and scoop are definitely not the poorest people in Nigeria. They're even not the poorest people in that neighborhood. And there are people who are also in those kind of circumstances that they are, in those places, who don't go out. So, excusing every bad behavior, every illegal behavior on poverty is not allowing people to own up and be responsible for their actions. So it's coming to a time, and it's generally within society, that people should stop excusing bad behavior, illegal behavior in the name of poverty. I mean, you ask those who involve in ritual killing for money, they will say it's poverty. Everything is poverty, or they say it's the devil. What we are doing by allowing those excuses is allowing people to be irresponsible. When people do what is wrong, they must be made to first own up and admit that I did what is wrong. My sense of judgment was wrong. My value system was corrupt. You can't blame everything on poverty. So I refuse to be one of those that goes into that line. Yes, people are poor. People are rich. There are those who are rich who go to do those things. There are those who are poor who don't do it. So it's not just about the financial state. It is just people not being responsible.
Okay, now the National Orientation Agency, they've launched this campaign against, skipping of fuel. In your recommendation or in your opinion, having said that even though people, will hear the right thing to do, they will hear it from agencies, they will hear from stakeholders that, okay, this is wrong, this is how this, but some people will still want to do what they want to do. Some people will still have to take some decisions they want to take irrespective of what, is being said or done to ensure that people, desist from these kind of activities. So what would be your strategy that you think will be more effective in making the people, desist from these kinds of anomaly?
So when you ask a parent, how do you train a child? There's no one strategy to it. And the way you train child A is different from the way you teach child B, of the same parents, in the same house, in the same environment, because it's dependent on the character of the child, the outlook of the child, the circumstances with which the child was born, the age, the number of factors that go into it. One of the things that the orientation agency may want to do is speak to people who are experts in that field, who are also government. There is the NMDPRA, which is the regulator that manages midstream and downstream. Those people probably, from a technical point of view, know more about those things than they can ever do. So there's nothing wrong in terms of interagency partnership. There are those who are structured organizations like the major marketers, like IPMAN, independent marketers, maybe one of the refineries and all that. They can reach out to one or two people in there, get their input, get them to want to see and all that. Then there are those who are responsible for certifying safety within every petroleum, in fact, any oil and gas, even power company. There is compulsorily an HSE section, with HSE standing for health, safety and equipment. And those things have been there for more than 70 years, which we have been in the industry. So those people have expertise, they have experience, they have ideas, they have certain things which it will help the National Orientation Agency from speaking to those people and understanding some of the more bigger fundamentals. From there, they can absorb from the technical people and then distill it into simple language for the layman to understand. So it's the way a mother eats nutritious food, digests it, and turns it into milk for the baby. The technical people, the NNPCs, the NUPRC, the NMDPRA, cannot speak the language of the people. They don't even have that kind of experience in terms of reaching to the masses. But that's what the Orientation Agency has done all the time it's existed. So there has to be a bridge. There's a gap. Somebody has to bridge that gap. And that's what they will do. By getting the technical information, they could even engage consultants if necessary, get the technical information, bridge that gap, and then distill it to the man on the street. So when the man on the street is knowledgeable, the average person in knowledge is motivated to change. They say people change on 3 basic reasons. When they experience enough pain that they want to change, when they know enough that they desire to change, and when the circumstances is too uncomfortable that they just need to change. So with knowledge, with people knowing the impact and the potential of those things, there will be those who are knowledgeable enough and say, no, this thing needs to stop. Because it is a certain amount of knowledge that makes you decide not to allow a child to be playing beside the expressway, beside the freeway. It is knowledge. It's not just because they don't want children to play. But for those who don't know about cars, who don't know about the circumstances and the dangers, they will feel, yeah, space, let the child go and play football in the center of the express. But knowledge will not allow that. So it's that same kind of knowledge that we expect to get to the bottom of the pyramid, to the extent that the people, when informed enough, will make those decisions that will allow them to respect the standards for health and safety in the industry.
Now, having said that, now, you, of course, with everything you've said, it is very, very important to say that attitudinal change is key to nipping this issue in the bud. Now, but before I go further to ask the other question, we'll take a short break now. The conversation will continue after the break. Don't go away.
The implementation of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow under digital economy for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different?
We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that are questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today. Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today, and we're looking at the campaign against fuel scooping. And of course, I have here in the studio with me an energy expert and a public affairs analyst, Olabode Shomi. So, Olabode, earlier before we went on break, I was talking about, this attitudinal change being, quite important to nipping this problem in the bud. Now, having talked about the technical know-how, from the technical angle, the experts and all of that, have roles to play in trying to avert these kinds of situation. What about the role of faith-based organizations, like the church, the mosque, and all of that, the family, the community, in all of this?
Well, they do have a role, but their role is also dependent on knowledge. So, it's not, you don't expect an imam or a pastor to be sufficiently knowledgeable in a way to pass all of these things across. But what is possible is that the orientation agency, as part of their strategy of getting this thing, can have meetings with the College of Catholic Bishops, the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, the Anglican Communion, the College of Imams, all those kind of religious bodies, youth groups and all that, as part of their meetings. And when they get those kind of information, they can pass it across when they're when they're speaking to those who fall within their circle of influence. So it is not something that should be excused, but they can only advocate, make an impact, contribute to the extent that they know what is happening and what to do. So at the end of the day, every channel, even estate associations are equally as good. Every channel can be used. Association of vulcanizers, association of welders, association of tailors, everybody is a potential for gaining that information.
Now, in your opinion, beyond what you've said, are there needs that must be met for this campaign to be very effective?
For the campaign to be effective, it needs to reach its target audience. It's as simple as that. I believe that with knowledge, you will see significant change, because we are talking about life and death. The truth is that the thing seems to be having this kind of weak penetration because people don't really see it as life and death. People see it as a risk to take in order to get something. Because when you wait, you get 5 jerrycans of petrol. How much are you going to sell that? Maybe 200,000, maybe 50,000. I mean, depending on what you get. I mean, let's even say 250,000 at 50,000 per barrel. Is that worth losing a life for? Those are the things that are not yet discussed. And apart from losing a life, if a young man is there, even if he doesn't have a family, if the guy is like 18 or 19, so there's a mother who for the last 18 years of her life had a child, a son, and is not going to have that anymore. That is a lot for a woman to bear. So if the person is 28 and is a provider and maybe a family, is that what, there are things that need to be analyzed for people. And it is when it's the knowledge of the reality of those things that will make them to stop. When people know enough, they are motivated to change. I think it was Awolowo in one of his journals that said that knowledgeable and educated people are easy to lead, but difficult to drive. Ignorant people are difficult to lead, but easy to drive. So when you educate people, it's easy to lead them. It's easy to talk to them with logic and all that. And I think that basically is weird. So it's the strategies for reaching the crevices, the nooks and the crannies of society that an orientation agency needs to do. And that really is their work. The technical part, distilling that information and passing it through is where they would need some help speaking with consultants and other people in society.
Not all of it. You talk about people, scooping fair, probably being lucky enough, I'll put it that way, being lucky enough to scoop up to 5 jerry cans, okay, and they're thinking about the money that they're going to make. Is there a possibility, or do you think it will also be wise if there are consequences? Like even if you succeed in getting the 5 jerry cans, you'll be arrested, prosecuted, something like that. Can deter people from going for, even if there's no explosion. Because even keeping the fuel at home is a danger in itself. Okay,
so it's not like there are no laws that cover those things, because if somebody's product spills and somebody comes to take it, that's theft. There is a criminal code that covers all of that. But over and above that, it's just really the issues of the life and death situation that is there. Because, okay, if fuel is spilling and people can see it pouring and the fumes are starting to get into the atmosphere, which policeman is going to arrest somebody in that situation?
Maybe after you've succeeded in getting the fuel now.
And so, even if you succeed, there probably has been losses. Maybe there was an explosion. If the thing was not skilled, so people have died and all that. There's a balance in life. There is the fact that there's the politics of issues, there's the emotional connection. If you arrest such a person, that's not really what connects with society. Even the government or the people involved maybe want to be seen as high-handed. So there are some things, there's a law for TV and radio charge. It exists. It has always existed since the 40s. But that law is a dead law, because nobody is going to, imagine a local government coming to your house and saying, how many TVs do you have? We want to charge you, I think it's maybe 15 kobo or something. So there's the nature of the way some of all these things are that makes certain laws difficult to implement and execute. That is the thing with those things. So, but with knowledge, with passing of information, we're able to kill 2 things: stop the illegality and then get people saving their lives. It is not every crime or every illegality that can be solved with force. It is not. There are some things that just come with orientation and people and cultural change, and that is one of them.
Thank you very much, Olabode Shomi, energy expert and a public affairs analyst. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Pleasure.
And thank you for being part of the program. Don't forget, Nigeria Today airs every weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24 Hub. You can also check out this episode and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I'm Ikaria Clinton. Goodbye.